Goedenavond allemaal. Door de oorlog in Oekraïne heeft de strijd voor vrijheid en democratie wederom nieuwe betekenis gekregen. In de Tegenlicht aflevering van afgelopen maandag werden 4 jonge activisten geportretteerd. Uit Rusland, Oekraïne, Wit-Rusland en Polen. Alle actief vanuit Polen. Hoe overleven idealen in tijden van diepe crisis? Welkom bij deze Tegenlicht Meet Up. Welkom ook alle mensen hier in de zaal. Heel fijn dat jullie er zijn. Welkom aan de mensen thuis die meekijken. We gaan vandaag met de filmmaker en met een aantal prachtige sprekers in gesprek. Die allemaal ook op hun manier activist zijn en op hun manier die strijd voeren. En meemaken wat het ook betekent om op die manier je tijd en je energie en je leven in te zetten voor daar waar je in gelooft. We hebben specifiek gevraagd om 4 activisten die hier in Nederland, maar voor hun vanuit de diaspora is in dat geval Nederland, over hun verhaal en hun strijd te vertellen. En dat doen we eerst een uur hier aan tafel. Hoe kijken jullie me serieus aan? Met de sprekers hier naast mij. Na dat uur kom ik ook bij jullie en dan is er ruimte om vragen te stellen. Een gedeelte van dit gesprek is in het Engels. Dat doen we omdat het voor sommige sprekers fijner is om in het Engels te spreken. Maar voel je vooral vrij om, als je in het nagesprek een vraag wil stellen en het zelf liever in het Nederlands te doen, om dat gewoon in het Nederlands te doen. We komen er samen wel uit. Goed, we gaan gewoon meteen van start en dat doen we met het eerste fragment. En daarin is Jana Shostak aan het woord. Zij is een Belarussische activist, vrijwilliger van de burgerpartisanenbeweging in Polen en een kunstenaar. Een van de activisten in de diaspora die gevolgd zijn. En zij is gevlucht voor het Lukasjenko-regime in haar thuisland.
Że my już nie możemy milczeć i wszystko nam, co pozostaje, to minuta krzyku. I mam nadzieję, że wszyscy i wszystkie na swój sposób zakrzyczymy.
Między innymi to był właśnie krzyk rozpaczy, ale też właśnie stężenia różnych emocji, które każdy z osób z Białorusi miał. Jest to w zasadzie pomnik dla ludzi wolnej Białorusi. Ta minuta krzyku eskalowała w momencie, w którym udało mi się jako artystce znaleźć w odpowiednim miejscu i czasie i połączyć sztukę z aktywizmem.
Jana is eigenlijk een kunstenares. Iemand met eigenzinnige ideeën die ze inzet om een politiek punt te maken. Neem die jurk, met portretten van 1200 politieke gevangenen uit Wit-Rusland erop. Deftig uitgestald in een Warschause galerie. Maar thuis in Wit-Rusland heeft ze er geen vrienden mee gemaakt.
Ja pokazywałam tylko minutę krzyku i tak to wystarczyło, żeby ogłosić mnie ekstremistką i zdrajczynią narodu. Według rozkładu czeka na mnie około 18 lat więzienia. Jestem zdrajczynią narodu, tak? Oficjalnie ekstremistką.
Belarus, official one. I didn't sell any of them in 3 months.
Bij mij aangeschoven Floris-Jan van Luijn, de maker van deze aflevering. Heel fijn dat je er bent. En Ilja Tsarbitski, activist, leider van de Belarussische beweging hier in Nederland. Heel, heel fijn dat jullie er allebei zijn. Floris-Jan, ik begin heel even bij jou. Als aanstichter van deze avond natuurlijk, met de film die je hebt gemaakt. Zo'n verhaal als dat van Jana, dat komt best wel binnen. Je voelt er emoties. Hoe was dat voor jou om op die manier deze 4 activisten te volgen? En al helemaal in deze tijd waar we nu in leven, waarin iedereen weer opnieuw bezig is met... het is niet allemaal zo vanzelfsprekend.
Ja, klopt. Nou, met Jana specifiek was het echt best uitputtend. Ze heeft een enorme energie. En ze laat zich eigenlijk door niemand tegenhouden in wat ze aan het doen is. Dus zeg maar als maker, om bij haar te blijven en haar te krijgen, om met haar te kunnen spreken, om dingen te kunnen doen, dat was heel moeilijk, maar tegelijkertijd was dat precies waar het over ging. Omdat het ging haar niet om, zeg maar, mij helpen bij het maken van een documentaire. Ze had iets anders te doen wat belangrijker was. Ja. En dat was naar de grens gaan. En dus ik zeg maar, we zijn 10 dagen onderweg geweest met z'n allen. En niet 10 dagen met haar. Met ieder ongeveer 2,5 dag. Ja. En ja, ik werd heel moe van haar. Ik probeer me voor te stellen om haar te zijn. Ja. Zij is ze is rusteloos en ze wil gewoon iets doen. Ja. Maar dat is ook, tegelijkertijd voel je ook dat haar kracht is en de schoonheid is van haar. En ze heeft een vriend en daar had ik het gewoon af en toe een beetje mee te doen. Zeg maar, hij weet heel duidelijk dat hij op de tweede plaats komt en dat er iets anders speelt. Ja. Maar je merkt aan alle 4 wel dat iedereen is, en Daria natuurlijk nog het meest, omdat zij is gevlucht uit Oekraïne, maar iedereen is ontzettend geraakt door de oorlog en door wat er de afgelopen tijd is gebeurd. En in zekere zin ook heel bezet en op momenten heel geraakt. Ja. Dus,
hoe heb je deze 4 mensen gevonden? Kende je deze mensen al?
Vanuit een research. Het is allemaal een heel kort bestek gemaakt. Dus het is allemaal vrij hectisch geweest natuurlijk. Dus na de oorlog hebben we bedacht van dit willen we eigenlijk graag doen. Dus ik ben eerst vooruit gegaan om te researchen samen met de Poolse researcher. En het is ook best wel moeilijk welke activist dan en wie dan precies. En we wisten eigenlijk wel dat we heel graag mensen wilden portretteren. Niet alleen maar Oekraïners, maar ook uit Belarus, ook uit Rusland en ook uit Polen zelf. Ja. Omdat we het gevoel hadden dat die verhalen op bepaalde punten samenkwamen. En omdat ze ook letterlijk samenstroomden in Polen. En dat je daar al die mensen zou kunnen spreken. En het leek me mooi om die verschillende verhalen naast elkaar neer te zetten. En te kijken, wat kan je daarvan meekrijgen? En voor mij is eigenlijk altijd wel belangrijk, maar hier vond ik het ook heel belangrijk dat je, zeg maar, als je Daria uit Oekraïne ontmoet, dat is echt iemand met een enorme power. Zij trouwens ook wel, maar iemand als Alexander, de Russische activist, is meer een activist by chance. Is meer zo, misschien zoals ik het zou doen. Dus kijken wat ik kan doen. Kan ik ergens mensen helpen? Kan ik vertalen? Ja. En ik vond het belangrijk om dat te doen, omdat ik het idee heb dat Daria is heel indrukwekkend. Maar ik zal nooit Daria worden waarschijnlijk. Lobbyen voor F-16's, weet je wel. En ik kan veel gemakkelijker Alexander worden. Ja. En ik vind het belangrijk dat je ook met mensen kan vereenzelvigen. Ja.
En dus ook om eigenlijk te laten zien dat er is niet één manier van activist zijn. Er zijn heel veel verschillende manieren.
Precies, en het maakt niet uit hoeveel het is wat je doet en hoe groot het is. Want we hadden ook kunnen gaan voor gewoon alleen maar hotshots of zo, weet je wel. En het is heel gaaf om die verhalen te horen. Ja. Maar het zit hem ook in iets veel bescheideners misschien. En dat voel je heel erg bij Alexander. Hij is natuurlijk naast Daria een heel ander mens. En heel verlegen ook. En hij zal nooit doen wat zij doet. Ja. Hè? Maar ondertussen doet hij wel iets. Ja.
En waarom vond je het zo belangrijk om deze film te maken?
Nou ja, kijk, we hebben met elkaar over gehad van je wil eigenlijk naar mensen luisteren die in deze tijd, in deze zwarte tijd, het is een droevig verhaal, maar tegelijkertijd ook een inspirerend verhaal. Ik heb in 2019 een portret gemaakt van 4 Hongkongse activisten.
Ja.
En daar hadden we het een beetje hetzelfde gevoel. Zeg maar, dat was een beetje de basis eigenlijk om hier naar op zoek te gaan. Wat kun je nou eigenlijk doen in deze tijd? En we krijgen natuurlijk heel veel verhalen van mensen die heel actief de wapens opnemen en strijd leveren in Oekraïne. Maar ja, ik bedoel, iedereen die daar buiten staat, maar dus ook buiten wat er in Belarus gebeurt, maar ook wat er in Rusland gebeurt. Zeg maar, wat kan je dan doen als je niet meer in je eigen land bent?
Ja.
En dus in zekere zin is het toch ook een spiegel. En het maakt je ook nederig, vind ik, als je daarnaar kijkt. Dus kijk, ik vond in het eind, als ik aan ze vraag van wat betekent vrijheid voor jou, dat klinkt vanuit de monden van deze mensen, als je hun verhaal kent, echt heel anders dan als je het verhaal niet zou kennen.
Ja.
En een soort van dat contrast en die achtergrond, die zocht ik op.
Ja.
Ja.
Mooi, dank. Ilja, jij komt zelf ook uit Belarus. Je woont al een hele tijd hier in Nederland. Op welke manier heb jij naar dit fragment gekeken?
Nou, heel emotioneel. Ik weet zelf dat we hebben de actie ook hier gevoerd. We hebben ook geschreven tegen de ambassade van Belarus in Den Haag. En het was ergens in november, december 2020. En dan na 4 maanden we protesteren ben je echt hopeloos. EU gaf niet in de sancties die we wouden. EU wou niet SWIFT afhalen. Heel veel problemen waren opzij gezet van we gaan het onderhandelen met het regime. En dan op een gegeven moment denk je, er zitten nu bijna 800 mensen in gevangenis, 20.000 mensen in totaal in gevangenis. Er zijn duizenden mensen die zijn invalide geworden. Wat kunnen we dan doen? We hebben bereikt naar de totale alle politicus in Nederland, in de Europese Unie. En dat kun je niet meer doen. En dan kun je alleen maar emotie uitschreeuwen. We hebben het voor 4 weken vastgehouden, maar daarna was iemand weer vermoord. En dan geeft het zo'n beetje hele hoop weg.
Ja. En want je bent nu eigenlijk de leider van de Belarusische beweging hier in Nederland.
Ja.
Hoe is dat zo gekomen? Waarom heb je die stap gezet? En wat doen jullie nu ook hier in Nederland? Wat kan je doen?
Nou, eigenlijk kwam het door dat heel veel mensen hadden een burn-out. Omdat probeer maar zo'n strijd mee te maken. Je leest in de nieuws elke dag slechte nieuws. Elke dag voor, ik weet niet hoeveel lang, voor 1 jaar, 1,5 jaar. Op een gegeven moment kun je het niet meer tegenaan. Ik kan het wel tegenaan, dus ik bleef strijden. Ik bleef politici aanvragen van oké, wat kunnen we nu doen? Met Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya in gesprek gaan. Wat kan Nederland doen voor haar kantoor? En dan blijf je doorgaan kleine dingen te doen. Activisme, zoals mijn collega zei hier, het is niet grote dingen steeds. Je probeert ook kleine dingen te regelen. Ik probeer dingen te regelen met vluchtelingen in Polen. Want voor Oekraïnse vluchtelingen had je heel veel Belarusische vluchtelingen. Want die vluchten dan regime. En de beste land was Polen. Die gaf ook aan Belarusische mensen zo'n vrije visum waarmee kun je ook zelfs mee werken. Dat was ongekend voor Polen. Polen is bekend een hardnekkige vluchtelingenregime. En ineens waren ze vriendelijk. En ik weet nog, 3 jaar geleden ben ik geweest voor een protest tegen Polen. En ik vond dat zo van een hele moeilijke tegenstrijd in mijzelf. Van, oké, heel conservatief land, maar ze hebben wel een Belarus. Hoe kijk ik ernaar? Wat is mijn eigen mening hierover? Dus het was heel moeilijk ook om dat te begrijpen eigenlijk voor mezelf. Van, hoe kom ik daarbij?
Ja. Wat dat betreft heeft de situatie in Oekraïne nu een verandering ook teweeg gebracht voor de deuren die voor jou wel of niet openstaan in wat je kan doen.
Ja.
Begrijp ik dat goed?
Ja, het is nu natuurlijk al aandacht aan Oekraïne. Maar dat snap ik ook zelf wel. Maar aan de andere kant denk ik van, we hebben ook gezegd voor 1,5 jaar, als je Lukashenko weg laat gaan, dan komt een oorlog of een conflict in dat gebied. Ja. En we hebben volgens mij een opinie geschreven vorig jaar en daar hebben we dat letterlijk gezegd. En dan denk je van, waarom heeft niemand naar ons kunnen luisteren 1,5 jaar? Ja. Waarom ineens, binnen een week was wel die sancties. SWIFT af, sancties voor tegen Lukashenko, tegen het hele regime, ineens kan het wel. Ja. Dus alles kan wel, alleen dan, ik weet niet waarom het niet kon toen de tijd.
Ja. En misschien dan nog tot slot heel even specifiek. Je werkt vanuit Nederland.
Ja.
Hè? Dus je zet je in voor de situatie in Belarus vanuit Nederland. Dat doet Jana ook. Dat doen de andere activisten in de film ook. Die werken vanuit een ander land dan hun eigen, behalve dan eentje. Wat voor verschil maakt dat voor jou? Heb je het idee dat dat impact heeft op de manier waarop je activist kan zijn?
Ja, het is en zeker in het begin en eigenlijk afgelopen hele vorig jaar. We hadden protestacties hier in Nederland. En je mag niet meer protesteren in Belarus. Als je gaat op straat, meer dan 4 personen, word je aangehouden, word je in elkaar geslagen. Dus mensen hebben geen enkel hoop. En dan wij sturen foto's van onze vrije protesten, van onze vrije beweging hier in Nederland of van andere land. En dan geeft toch mensen een hoop dat ze zijn niet vergeten. En dat stuur je ook aan politieke gevangenen in een brief van, we doen iets voor jullie. Ja. Want er zitten nu 1.500 mensen in gevangenis. Ze hebben allemaal een familie. Mensen die zijn allemaal invalide geworden, die hebben ook allemaal familie. Dus er zijn duizenden, tienduizenden mensen die hun levens een beetje verwoest geraakt, omdat ze wouden vrijheid. En ik kan niet tegen mezelf zeggen dat ik moet deze strijd ophouden, omdat ik kan mezelf niet gaan aankijken van, en al die mensen dan, wie gaat voor hun strijden hier? Ja. Als ik opgeef, als andere mensen opgeven, dan wie doet het dan? En had het wel een zin wat ze hebben gedaan. Maar zij hadden echte strijd. Ze waren daar in Belarus. Ze stonden tegenover de politie. Ze werden in elkaar geslagen. Ja. Ze werden gemarteld. Ze kregen een boete. Sommigen werden kinderen afgepakt. En dan kan ik niet aan mezelf gaan kijken van oké, Ilja, het is tijd, iets anders. Ik ga een andere hobby kiezen. Ja. Dit is een hele lange hobby. Misschien kan ik even surfen of zo.
Misschien af en toe surfen.
Ja.
Goed, Ilja, jij blijft ook nog bij ons voor de rest van het gesprek. Maar Floris-Jan, voordat ik jou weer loslaat, ben ik eigenlijk ook wel heel benieuwd, in hoeverre heb jij nog contact met deze 4 activisten? Weet je hoe het met ze gaat? Hoe gaat dat eigenlijk?
Ja, het is voor mijn gevoel een soort van, was ik er vorige week nog. We hebben niet letterlijk, we hebben 3 weken gemonteerd en enorm ons best gedaan om alles te vertalen. Want er was natuurlijk 4 verschillende talen. Ja. Maar ja, we hebben gewoon contact gehouden, ook vooral om bepaalde dingen te begrijpen, die ik rechtstreeks heb gevraagd aan aan bijvoorbeeld aan Janik, de Poolse activist, weet je wel, die heel snel Pools praat. En dus we hebben gewoon contact en iedereen is nog in exact dezelfde situatie. En aan de grens en Medica gaat het gewoon nog steeds door. Er gaan weliswaar meer mensen nu uit Polen dan dat ze erin komen. Maar die behoeftes en de vragen en het werk wat Jana doet, dat blijft gewoon. En Daria ook. Dus Alexander denk ik ook. Dus, ja.
Goed, Floris-Jan, wij zien jou straks terug voor het nagesprek. Ja. Maar voor nu heel erg veel dank. En dan gaan we nog het volgende fragment kijken. Daarvoor ga ik nu naar het Engels over. So we're going to switch to English. And we're going to watch the second clip from the documentary. And in this clip is the Ukrainian activist portrayed that Floris-Jan already mentioned before, Daria Keleniuk. And she explains how the threats from the Putin regime forced her to leave her home country.
One of the reasons why I relocated the next day after the Russian invasion is because of the Russians' assassination list. Information that such list exists was published in many media before the war. And basically, the plans of Russian government was, and probably still is, to eliminate people who create problems for them. A few days before war started, Vladimir Putin made a long speech. I listened to this speech to understand his mood.
Именно с первых шагов стали строить свою государственность на отрицании всего, что нас объединяет. Стремились исковеркать сознание, историческую память миллионов людей, целых поколений, живущих на Украине. Неудивительно, что украинское общество столкнулось с ростом крайнего национализма, который быстро приобрел форму агрессивной русофобии и неонацизма. Отсюда и участие украинских националистов и неонацистов в бандах террористов на Северном Кавказе.
And after this speech, I had two conclusions. First, that the war will happen for sure. In the coming days, it will start. That the war will happen actually against entire Ukraine. He was actually challenging the right for our country to exist. The second thing is he mentioned all reforms I was working for during the last 8 years.
Want corruptiebestrijding, de aanpak van oligarchen, de ontmanteling van oude machtsstructuren, zeg maar haar ding, daarmee raak je de Russische staat in zijn kern.
So we refocused from Ukrainian purely activities into anti-corruption activities towards Putin and his oligarchs.
Okay, welcome. I have a lovely panel next to me. I'm very happy that you're all here. Like I said, during this meetup, we really chose to invite activists that are also working from the diaspora. In this case, the diaspora that's called the Netherlands. And all of you are active for different causes in different parts of the world as well. Before we really dive into what it actually means to be an activist in the diaspora, we just want to get to know you a little bit better and hear about the fight that you are fighting. So Ilya, you're with us. We already heard a little bit from you, so I'm going to get back to you a little bit later. Parvis Alam, you are an activist, a writer, and you're a research master student at the University of Amsterdam. Can you tell us what kind of activist are you?
In Bangladesh, I was involved with mostly green left politics, but at the same time, I was, as a writer and activist, I was opposing the kind of binary politics that there is among more like the Islamist and also the or like, let's say, Islamophobics. So there is like a kind of Islamofascism and like a anti-Islam kind of fascism there, which you can call like maybe secular fascism. That's like very much in the context of Bangladesh and in some other global south countries. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to like oppose both fascistic groups. So you can say like anti-fascistic kind of activity.
And you did that at first from Bangladesh itself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in which way? Which form does your activism take?
Mostly writing, also this kind of discussion. Managing to have some kind of discussion with also the people who are completely against me or the kind of politics that I was doing, bringing different kind of people together. But other like textbook activism, being in the protest, doing different kind of events. Yeah.
And what is your goal? Because you say that you want to argue with both sides, both of the extreme sides, right? But where do you want to end? What are you fighting for?
That is a very good question. Well, at this moment I would be like I would say like more pessimistic about my answer. I would just want things to get a little better. At this moment, the whole world is heading into a really bad direction. We're heading into a very fascistic direction. It's a time of fascism everywhere, like not in Europe, also like in the Indian subcontinent, in the Middle East, and like in many other parts of the world. And like even in Eastern Europe, what we're saying now, it's a very, very, very dark time. And I mean, I'm not really doing activism to, let's say, creating a utopia, but I would like to get out of this dystopia and think that, okay, there is some kind of way out of this dystopian reality.
Yeah. And you're now active from the Netherlands. Are you active in the same ways as you were there?
No. I mean, in Bangladesh, I'm only like active as a writer these days, since I'm not there. Which is also a different kind of activism because you're not in the middle of it. You can reflect back, but I'm not like Daria here, who is so much involved.
Yeah.
She can't really reflect on it. I was there also in a similar situation with her, like back in 2013. That was the only activism I was connected to that has some connection with nationalism, because I was fighting for to bring justice some war criminals under justice. But the whole thing becomes so political, and there were so many interest groups. They were like manipulating things. That whole movement of justice kind of resulted in a civil war situation. And I obviously was not happy to see young people on the opposite side dying to save some war criminals. That made me think again about like jumping into any kind of activism without thinking about the repercussions that's going to happen. So no, I'm like I think like being here and not really too much I'm not too much active in the Bangladeshi politics anymore, but it helps me to reflect back what happened in the past and what is happening now.
Yeah.
I personally think for an activist, when she needs to like buy weapons, that's like the worst nightmare an activist can get into.
Yeah.
Because then, I mean, I'm always in support for like finding kind of empathetic solidarity with any group, even if it's your own country or your own ethnicity. But at the same time, when we completely fall into that abyss where we don't see anything other than black and white, that's where like I think like activism is no longer separable from this like the kind of like this period that we're living in which like black and white political narrative kind of rules. I think activism needs to find a way out of there. And in Netherlands, I too sometimes just go to protests that happened here. Mostly my friends were involved in various leftist groups, but I just go there because as an activist, if I don't go to protests like in every few months, I would feel bad. But I don't involve myself too much because at this moment, since I'm a student, I'm just focusing on my study mostly.
All right, thank you. Next to you is sitting Raki Ab. Raki, you're the spokesperson at the Free West Papua campaign here in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Please tell us more. What is this organization, movement, group? How do you call yourself? Collective?
Yeah, so we call us Free West Papua campaign, and it's an honor to be the international spokesperson for that campaign. Our campaign's vision is basically to get the right of self-determination for the people of West Papua. For those who doesn't know it, it's a former Dutch colony, like Indonesia got independence. West Papua was promised independence by the Dutch Queen and the government in the early 60s, but it ended up to be a new colony under the current Indonesia. So much later, when the West Papuans didn't got the right or the opportunity to vote in a fair way through a referendum in 1969 for that independence, we became part of the Indonesia of today, with almost a similar situation which we see today in Ukraine. And since that moment, the liberation movement in West Papua was established, and some 20 years ago, under the leadership of His Excellency Benny Wenda, the Free West Papua campaign was launched. And I was at the time a teenager of 16 years, and there was the moment that I thought I should
already living here, right?
Already living here. A little bit context is that my father, Arnold Ab, who was a famous musician and anthropologist, was assassinated 4 months before I was born in West Papua, and that basically, you know, turned my life to the person I become today. So, you know, the activism already began when my father was assassinated. So coming here in the Netherlands and meeting Benny Wenda, we formed the Free West Papua campaign chapter in the Netherlands. And since that moment, as 16-year-old, you know, I followed my brother. I joined protests. That was my first form of activism. And of course, that path grew to the person I became today, and describing myself as an all-round activist, lobbying with Dutch parliamentarians, giving interviews, joining protests of Extinction Rebellion, because West Papua is part of is the western half of the world's largest tropical island with the most unique biodiversity. So I'm connecting these injustices about the climate crisis. And if we, you know, focuses on those frontline communities like we're focusing on Ukraine today, we didn't have this climate crisis. Not so much people in West Papua. More than 500,000 indigenous West Papuans have been victims under the current Indonesia since the Dutch left us. That's an immense number, but we didn't got that much exposure. like luckily Ukraine has. And that's why, our campaign exists. We have to educate the world about what is happening in West Papua, about the genocide, especially here as former colony of the Netherlands.
Yeah, because that's already quite a sort of also kind of estranging situation maybe to be in, that you're fighting for a cause in a region where the country that you're now living has a colonial past, and we're living in a country that also struggles to acknowledge that colonial past.
Exactly.
So how does that? How do you feel that because you're working from here, you're not working from, let's say, Germany or whatever. You're specifically here in the Netherlands.
Absolutely, and it is frustrating most of the time. But at the same time, I try to see a lot of optimism within the people who can be the change. If I see the story of Daya, which is very similar, Indonesia make a lot of propaganda movies of my activism, which is a good compliment about my activism. But I feel the sentiment that I can't go back because my father was assassinated. So the only way to be a good ambassador for my people is to be here. And this is the most, it's a problematic country because it's the former colony who's silent, who've wiped out our shared history out of their history books. So that's reality I have to face.
Yeah.
By accepting that reality and finding a way to create a change, that's what gives me energy and positive, feelings. Finding allies within universities, within the climate change movement, within the political system, that's what gives me energy.
Yeah.
And it didn't form me in one day. Of course, it needs more than 20 years to bring me to this position. But in those 20 years, it gives me, immense, unique perspective, which I force institutions to change the narrative within the climate change movement, also Dutch political parties. That's what the activism have brought me as proud, practical, educated guy. Nobody can tell me, the change is not possible. If I can show them what my people without freedom, with very little resources, have created, how much change they've created today. And also me in the Netherlands, from a very humble position, we have created so much change. And that's what gives me a lot of energy and optimism.
Yeah. Nice, thank you, Raki. And then besides you, last but not least, is Hila Dayan. She's a political sociologist, lecturer at the Amsterdam University College. But here mostly because she's also the co-founder of the platform Gate 48. Hila, welcome. Very happy to have you here. Maybe first, what's Gate 48 for the people who don't know yet?
Perhaps I can first say how deeply moved I am by Raki and everyone here. I'm deeply grateful for the invitation, which is, which is such an amazing opportunity. Every word that's been said here so far deeply moves me. It's deeply relevant to my life as well.
It resonates with
you. Absolutely. And the movie, which is very intense, and I really, I delved into it very deeply. But thank you for your question. So Gate 48 is a platform that I established together with two more colleagues and close friends of mine. We're all coming from the human rights community in Israel with years of experience as activists there. We ended up here for personal reasons, and then we looked at each other and said, okay, we're here.
We're not done.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
We have to do something political, and of course, to continue our lifelong struggle against our own evil regime in Israel and the occupation regime, and in general, educating people about Israel-Palestine from a critical perspective. I must say, Israel-Palestine, unlike the case of Raki, is a well-known conflict here in the Netherlands. Everybody thinks they know about it. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody says, they are deeply concerned.
Yeah. And it's
about
deeply
the
political as well. Yeah.
Right. And yet, I still feel that the critical voice, the voice of people who are really struggling, who are the Palestinians, is not heard. And by the way, let's acknowledge I'm here today and not a Palestinian activist, unfortunately. So I want to acknowledge that and take this position to say, it's interesting to look at diaspora politics, But Palestinians are perhaps the most illustrious activist diaspora that there is, simply because of the historical fact, and we are next week commemorating it, that they were ethnically cleansed, that 700,000 people in 1948 had to flee and were forced out of their homes, and there never have been any resolution of this old refugee crisis, which led to the creation of diasporic Palestinian communities who are still struggling after so many decades for acknowledgement of their rights and for self-determination and just simply life of dignity.
Yeah. Thank you. Before we watch the second or the third clip, I wanted to reflect a bit on the clip that we saw, because the story of Daria is also, like Floris Jan explained, it's in a way the most extreme form of that you could end up. You also mentioned it. This is like, that's actually where an activist doesn't want to end up. It's something that could be like so many steps away from where you begin as a person and then where you end up in your activism. But it's also the dangers and the risks. She literally is on the hit list. She has to flee her home country. Is that something that you, as activists in the diaspora here, recognize? Do you have the same kind of tensions, risk, dangers in the work that you do here that you would like to reflect on? I'm just going to look in your eyes, see who wants to talk.
Yeah, I think I'll start on a hit list. So there were names on the hit list, and it actually true. People in Bucha were killed because they were on a hit list. So it's like a very serious thing. We from Belarus diaspora, we got a lot of warning signs in Poland and Lithuania, where you have this weird man just come and film you, and in the time you're wearing a face mask, so you don't know who is filming you, but it kind of gets scary to people, like what they will do to me and my family.
But here in the Netherlands,
it has happened in Poland, for example, in the beginning, and then we had an email from a month ago that there is an agent in Netherlands that was sent by Belarus to control diaspora here. Yeah. So then it kind of gave a whole different resonance, because Russian agents, people have heart attacks if they spoke bad about Putin, things like this. And then you kind of start thinking, okay, this is going to get a bit more serious. Even though in Europe, in Netherlands, how safe do you really feel here?
So how safe do you feel?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I live in a city, and then I heard about the news once that the Iranian activist got shot in front of his door. And then you kind of start to resonate. Okay, how safe I am here? I don't feel 100% safe anymore. I want to feel safe. I want to say that I'm in Netherlands and the police is here helping and everything, but I have a external number that I can call in if I see suspicious behavior. Because there is a fight for freedom. I feel this is getting out of hand. Like I think, like he said, it's black and white, but this is the activists of Daria as well. You are facing immediate danger.
Yeah. How safe do you feel in your work? Raki, yeah?
Yeah. I think I can share the same feeling that Daria has. I'm also blacklisted in Indonesia. If I will set foot on ground, I will be arrested. If I'm lucky, I will get imprisoned. If not, I will be dead. Including because I know prominent Indonesian military and policymakers have called us out, specifically by name. Yeah. So it's very familiar, but at the same time, as I mentioned, as activists, it's a compliment that we are hurting them through our activism. And we are lucky that we are based in the Netherlands, where we have a law that is working and a justice institution, police force who will protect you. But my frustration is that just imagine that in the current situation between Ukraine and Russia, that the US, the Netherlands, Australia, and all the Western countries will support Putin, will train their special forces, oppressing Ukraine. Just imagine that. That is exactly what is happening in Indonesia, West Papua. It are Australian special forces, US special forces who are training Indonesian military, killing my people, extracting the world's largest gold mine. So this is the double standard which I heard from my comrade as well, how they receive, luckily, the Ukrainian brothers and sisters, but at the same time ignoring my people's right for more than 60 years, which is a former Dutch colony. So, yes, I'm threatened, but I doesn't care about that, because my brothers and sisters are being killed every single day in West Papua. So I have a privilege that I can do what I do here in the Netherlands. Yes, there's a risk, but the risk is always lower than what is happening in West Papua, which the global north is allowing Indonesia to do. And that double standard is frustrating me.
Yeah.
But it gives me hope to be here, to share these perspectives and make people, know familiar about this double standard in the global north.
Yeah. Professor, see you nodding like...
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I do agree with
You
him.
agree?
I mean, obviously, the risk of working in your country as an activist against a regime and doing that being in the West, especially in a country like Netherlands, is a huge difference. Because there are not a lot of government who would actually send agents here. Maybe Eastern European and some African government and
China.
China, yeah. Not the Bangladeshi government. I have the privilege to really sometimes write the kind of things that nobody in Bangladesh would imagine nowadays to write about. I use that freedom. I use that freedom. I mean, it's very strange that, it's very uncommon here, but when she was talking about hit list, I was remembering so many things, and now you're talking about hit list.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many hit lists where my name was since 2013 to 2016.
Yeah.
And those hit lists were nothing funny, because many of the people whose name were on those hit lists are dead now. And for me, I remember, as I was saying, it's very. I can find some kind of relationship with Daria. I can see where she is. Like a person who is in hit list, that person is not the kind of person who actually sits in a chair like this and talks about the danger of black and white. Because at that moment, for me, why am I leaving the country? Am I too afraid to die? No, I just want to live another day to fight back, so that I can keep remembering my friends who...
You're in completely different mindset.
Yes, it's a completely different mindset. But I think working in the West is much safer, even though you still probably gets threatened, or maybe sometimes people from the government comes here and try to talk to you and try to tell you that, we don't have any other alternative, so why just criticize us? If this regime goes, something worse is going to come. So they would try to convince you not to be very critical, but to be more, silent about it. Yeah.
Ila, maybe
So like
add?
my comrades, I feel privileged to be doing my activism from here in many senses. I just want to say, in our context of Israel-Palestine, we don't talk about hit lists, but we do have blacklists. So there are blacklists, and we are targets of social media campaigns, hatred campaigns. We are often called self-hating. We are often blamed for being, propagating terrorism or supporting terrorism. Of course, being traitors of our own people. I recently published an op-ed in the newspaper Haaretz, and most of the troll commentary was, who are you? Whatever, curses. You don't live here anymore. You have no right to speak. You are a traitor. That sort of thing. And yet I think, and there's another difference, that Israel wants to be seen as a democracy, right? Never mind its dictatorial military rule for decades over millions of people. So they don't send agents here, but they have a very strong lobby, Israel lobby, and they have a lot of people that do the dirty work for them. So it's the dirty work of putting pressures on the Dutch government is grassroots. It's the hegemonic, you can say, voice here in the Netherlands. And we, as activists who are critical of the regime and are critical of our government, we find ourselves many times sidelined, silenced, not invited to important discussions, not taken into consideration here in the Netherlands. And that's really our struggle. Our struggle is to be relevant there and to be relevant here and to be heard. And I think that for me, the solution is to use my huge privilege of being here, also as an academic, as a scholar, as a mother of three, who is raising her children, to be also Jewish Israelis the way that I see it as a viable identity. And I use this privilege by way of some things that my comrades there cannot do, I do. Yeah. And some of my weapons are also the weapon of the writing, and also the weapon of the doing internal lobbying, and also the weapon of making a difference in building the bridges and the kind of community and networks that we need in order to move our struggles forward. Yeah. I used to think, I'm now getting older, that the occupation will definitely end in my lifetime. Definitely. I used to be totally convinced that this will happen, that I will see the day, because it's so unjust.
Yeah.
How come it lasts so long? And as I'm getting older, I'm not so sure anymore. But one thing I know for sure is that if it continues, and it will, we will continue as well.
Yeah. Thank you. We're gonna watch the third video. We're gonna listen to a Russian activist, Alexander Konovalov, and he discusses the personal toll it also takes to fight the fight worth fighting.
Actie voeren en hulp verlenen kan heel eenvoudig zijn. Eigenlijk is het al genoeg dat hij in de taal die zij verstaat een luisterend oor biedt. Maar dat luisterende oor zou hij ook zelf wel kunnen gebruiken.
Конкретно я с отцом никогда не спорил на такие политические темы, потому что я видел, к чему это может привести. А мой отец, он больше все-таки говорил, что существующая власть не такая плохая. И мы разговаривали последние 4-5 лет, мы разговаривали в основном о погоде. Допустим, мои друзья, которые не поддерживали власть, начали ругаться с теми друзьями, которые ее поддерживали. С родителями тоже начались отношения как-то портиться, потому что они... Ну, я не могу сказать, что они делали вид, что ничего не происходит, но они как-то старались не говорить об этом, но тяжело говорить о погоде опять, как это было раньше, когда происходит уже такое.
Hoe lang blijf je toekijken en wanneer ga je over tot actie? Vanuit de veiligheid van een stabiel land is het bijna niet voor te stellen hoeveel moed ervoor nodig is om hardop te zeggen wat je denkt. Laat staan dat je je hele leven op de schop doet, naar het buitenland vertrekt, om van daaruit in een vreemd land actie te blijven voeren.
Yeah, so you've been sharing already some of the, sort of the collateral damage that comes with fighting the fights that you're fighting, right? And personally, I think you're all being very humble and very brave. And saying, as long as it's going on there, I will not stop here. And I have a very privileged position that I can fight the fight that I'm fighting here. But as we see also in this fragment, you're also people. You're also just normal people, and it also has an impact on your personal lives. So I want to explore that a little bit with you. In that sense also, how does it impact you, but also how do you shape that in a way that it doesn't make you passive because you're all active. So I'm curious, does this resonate with you? What Alexander is, for example, sharing about the relationship with his friends, with his family. Hila, I see you nod. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because just last week, Israel celebrated its Independence Day. And as I said, next week we are commemorating the Nakba. These are the Palestinian catastrophe. So on the family WhatsApp, it's all like, yes, independence. And then I get this meme that says, with the Israeli flag, that says, we don't have another country. And I'm like, wait a second. Yeah, this is, so these are moments in which you realize, well, there is, of course, this is a nationalistic thing. Raki was born an activist. I wasn't born an activist. I was born into a Zionist worldview. I was educated into a Zionist worldview where this was the creed, right? We don't have anywhere else to go to. We are there, we are here, and this is our country, and this is our land. So it's coming from that, that worldview, and it took me years to develop a critical approach to these truths, and it's just incredible. What I want to emphasize is that as a diaspora activist, it is one of our jobs is to understand our society. So if I'm an Israeli, I'm not only struggling in solidarity with my Palestinian comrades, and I'm doing anti-occupation activities and supporting everything that's going on there, I'm also responsible for educating my own society, for understanding my own society, for deciphering its common sense, so that we don't give up the struggle on the soul of our own society, of the society we grew up in. And that, I think, is really important for me to stress. So when I get this meme from the family app, I'm like, on the one hand, I want to kill someone. On the other hand, of course, I don't want to get into any political discussion. On the other hand, I feel that I need to understand this deeply.
So you do
Why
engage.
are they sharing this meme? What do they want to convey? What is it that they are telling me? Yes, it is also my homeland. I feel that way towards Israel. I love my family that's there. I love the country. I am from there. This is like my place. So I will never turn my back to it. But what does this love come from if you are feeling completely in exile when you are there? When you're there, you're in exile. You're politically in exile. You're resisting your own family's upbringing. You cannot have one political discussion without it ending in Kristallnacht type of situation.
Yeah.
But
you're framed as a traitor.
Yeah, you're framed as a traitor. Yeah. They know who you are. And I got this question once from a family member. So, but I know you're really concerned about human rights violations, but why in Israel? There's so many other places where human rights violations are happening. Why are you solely concerned about human rights violations in Israel? I was like, are you kidding me? It was one of these striking moments where you realize, how would you ever be able to answer this without wreaking havoc on you, your relationship with your family, etc. The personal prices, as I think today, for instance, we mourn the death of a very distinguished journalist, Al Jazeera journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh. She was shot in Jenin while she was reporting this morning. Every day, there's not a day that passes that there's no disaster coming from this disaster area. And you sometimes feel you're dragged into the abyss with that, and you have to get yourself together, give yourself also a lot of credit for what you have done. Take the time off as well, find another hobby, and in order to come back and reestablish yourself. I call it this kind of the manic depression of activism, right? If you're doing something, you're really 100% onto it, and you're gonna continue, but then at some point it exhausts itself, or you need to find other ways, or you are changing, the situation is changing. So give yourself also some time to retreat, to think, to critically reflect on what you did. It's extremely important to take some time off.
Yeah. Ilya, because you started actually with that, right? Also the desperation that you recognized in the clip with Jana. How does the work that you do impact your personal life?
It impacts a lot. Much more than it took me a bit to realize how much it actually takes toll on me. Because actually, I think we're fighting a couple of wars even before the war in Ukraine. We're fighting a personal war with information. Because you just get so much information, and it's all negative information, and then you kind of have to figure out what is even the truth. You're fighting a war with your family about what is the truth, because they think they're the truth, and I'm brainwashed here. I'm sure they're brainwashed there. But how to convince a brainwashed person you're brainwashed? It's going to be an impossible task. And for me, this is I think this is the harshest. I know Ukraine crisis is bad, but the harshest thing that Putin and Lukashenko have done is ruining so many families of normal people who cannot even talk to each other anymore. You have millions of people in Russia, in Belarus, who just, it's not happening. I don't know how they will reconcile in future because of all the propaganda that is just based on destroying the families. So there's Ukrainian, we can see them, that they're damaged. There are people who, Alexander, who cannot speak to his father. I know at least 1,000 people who like this, and there's way more. And as long as this continues, this hate and this propaganda, this will continue. So that's a war. And then there's my personal war of having time for myself. Because I have a personal life. I like to have also time off. I like to go to some places. But because your phone is ringing and there's something happening and there's something news and you have to react, you have to respond, you have to create a protest, you have to create a letter, you have to create something. And it's on and on. That doesn't take a break. They don't take a break, the Secret Service of Belarus or Russia, they don't take a break.
Yeah.
Because
they don't have extra hobbies.
Yeah. they should definitely get different hobbies or different jobs. So it's and I see that, and I would try to address it within diaspora here in Netherlands. We're like, okay, guys, just say that you have enough. I understand I have to lead, but then you guys, I cannot also not do it all by myself.
No.
We have to have a team, and it's thank God we have team members who can do work with us. But it's also important that they also take, and it's really hard to tell people when you read the news and you see somebody died or something awful happened that let's not do anything. So you try to find a balance.
Actively choose to not act.
Yeah, because something worse will happen later. Unfortunately enough.
Yeah, Raki, because before you touched upon this as well, right? I will not stop because there way worse things are going on, so I cannot rest. I need to continue. How do you deal with that pressure? It's a lot of responsibility.
I think I share a lot with feelings like my comrade, and I think it's a constant process of sacrificing. Instead of being now, I'm a father of 5 children. To
that takes a lot of time as well.
Instead of being with them, I'm here, and this is not the first meeting. So you're sacrificing time that you should spend with your family. You could spend with your family, or you can focus on a career. I've spent, I think, a full-time job next to my full-time job because I'm an activist. And when there's an urgent situation in West Papua, which is at this moment in West Papua, there's an uprising going on. There's a military operation going on in West Papua. As international spokesperson, I'm on standby. Yeah. When they call, there has to be a press release, or I will be there because I have no backup who can do us, who capable to do what I am. Yeah. Because we have no funding from an NGO or government, so we can, organize ourselves. And this makes the circumstances that we make more sacrifices than we would love to.
Yeah, I think this is the key. The key is to build our communities so that they are strong, so that we can let each other and hold each other. I mean, that's one of my impressions from the documentary. It was so gripping to see also the loneliness of the activists that our director portrayed. He really showed that their struggles, their inner struggles, but also this sense of I'm alone against immense power.
Yeah.
Right? So
It's bigger than what any
it's
people
always going to
person
be
could-
bigger than
yeah.
you. It's going to
Yeah.
crush you. So I was very moved by the work of the Russian activist because he helps people, and also the Polish activists. Obviously, all of them are amazing. But even these little actions of receiving people, taking care of people who are arriving from there, which we have a saying in Hebrew, if you saved one soul, you saved the world, right? So that's really for me the essence of our activities are to be there for each other and to expand that solidarity as far and as the most expensive way that we can, not only for our own personal interests, because we cannot hold this responsibility all by ourselves. It has to be collective. So I was asking our director whether they are indeed lone wolves acting by themselves, and he said that they are, and it felt really, I felt really sad to hear that, because I think more organization, our ability to be more organized and to act as a collective is the key to our success as activists.
Yeah. Parvis, what is your take on this? Because you mentioned that you are now in a more reflective place as well, right? In your activism. If you want to continue saving other souls, how do you save your own?
Oh, my own.
Yeah,
No,
it's also important, right?
I would actually like to start
to campaign for yourself.
Huh?
Start a campaign for yourself.
No, I'm just going to start with the quote from perhaps Mishnah. I'm not sure. This quote is also in the Quran, and I actually used it in my book too, in my last book. Like, anybody who kills one soul, he would be responsible for. I mean, he's the killer of everyone. It's kind of like
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a proverb that both in Jewish text and in Quran they take from the interpretation of the first killing, Cain killing Abel. For me, there is like a very paradigmatic truth there, and that I kind of was feeling, as I'm saying, like there was a lot of conflict in Bangladesh, and there was a lot of innocent people, young people who lost their life. And I asked this question just to myself, not only to myself, but also like the senior activists. There were senior activists and authors whom I respected, philosophers and activists. I really, really respected and grew up reading their stuff. But when the whole conflict began, and I realized like they completely lost their mind, they're like out for blood, They're like, they perhaps forgot the value of people's life, but it was also the time I remembered, like, I can't like sacrifice, I can't like get into politics in a way that would like risk people's life, that would ask for sacrifice of people for the name of justice or freedom or democracy. I'm not saying that never sacrifice, Sometimes we need to sacrifice, but it doesn't mean that we should be like, very appreciative of those kind of things. And to tell you the truth, I was never planning to become an activist. I always wanted to be a writer. I became an activist because
out of need.
Yes, exactly. In my teen, I kind of fell into a bit of nihilist phase, and activism kind of helped me to overcome it. There was also like a big protest in our own suburb, which I got involved to, and I realized that this is what I need in my life. And I got involved in several grassroots organizations, but at a certain point of life, I need to also look into the activism, the life of an activist, and the kind of community that he must belongs to and also reproduce. And that also has other problem in it. And you were saying like you have a family life, and it's very difficult when you have you're a family man, and luckily I'm not. But
he has 5, don't forget.
But
if I may say, in the Netherlands, I find that oftentimes the word activist is a bad word, actually. People don't respect people who are activists. People don't appreciate their unobjectiveness. I often encountered that perception, and I found that that's one of the most difficult things, right? To explain that our passion for what we do does not necessarily make us, extremists or people without any analytical capacities to understand where we're coming from and how we see the world there, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes,
Not black and white people,
for instance,
basically.
there will be something on Israel-Palestine. I will, I will not be invited as a scholar. Why not? I'm a scholar. I'm studying this. I'm an Israeli sociologist. I know best how to explain to you the mindset of Israeli society. But because I'm an activist, right? So these are moments in which our privilege here is curtailed by prejudice against activism.
Yeah.
I think it's important to highlight it here. I'm sure that you encountered this too with activists here from the conflict area, from Ukraine and Belarus, that they are not heard because, we know who you are and what you want, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is one of one of our struggles here to overcome that.
Yeah. We have to round up this official part, but luckily there's still time to have the discussion with you. But because I also really want to give you some time to interact with all the speakers. So what we're gonna do is the following: we have one more clip. That is a clip that the program maker of this evening really, really wants to screen. So we're gonna watch it.
Yes.
But then we're not gonna talk about it immediately. We're gonna talk about it with you. With everyone, okay? So we're gonna have a look at the fourth and final activist that was portrayed in the documentary, the Polish Jewish activist Janek Spiwak, who reflects on both the past and the present, maybe also already a little bit the future of activism in his own country and actually even in his own neighborhood.
My family was also refugees, and but they were accepted by. They were part of Russia then. That's quite interesting. My grandmother from my mother's side and my grandmother from my father's side, they survived the war in Russia. So it's quite interesting that for my grandparents, Russia was the place that saved Jews, basically, from the German oppression. We have also this feeling that they saved part of our family, but now everything has changed. They are the fascist regime that wants to wipe out people who are not from their ethnicity, which is crazy, This house was part of the German district during the Second World War. And basically during the war, it was a place where, officers of Wehrmacht lived. So you can see from the windows here, you can basically see the headquarters of Warsaw Gestapo, where horrible things happened during the war. It's quite symbolic that the Jewish family who survived the Holocaust is living now. So we won. Life won over death, and hopefully it will stay this way.
Если они еще не перешли красную черту. Давайте сделаем так. Мы, славяне, чтобы мы всегда жили в мире и согласии. Все проходит. Не только противостояние, конфликты, но и самые страшные войны. Все проходит. Забывается.
Okay, so this is the teaser. If you're not here in the room, next time be here, because we're going to discuss it in the after talk. But now I'm going to switch back to Dutch just to do the roundup. Dus heel erg bedankt aan deze fantastische sprekers hier. Heel erg veel dank ook aan Floris-Jan van Luijn voor het maken van deze film en zijn aanwezigheid hier. Mag je zeker verklappen. Op maandag 23 mei om 10:15 op NPO 2 is de volgende Tegenlicht, de ideale Unie, volgens Mathieu Segers. Een gesprek over gemeenschappelijke Europese waarden en de integratie van Oost- en West-Europa. De meetup is natuurlijk weer hier in Pakhuis op 25 mei om 8 uur. Dus wees welkom. Wil je voor die tijd meer Tegenlicht tot je nemen? Kijk dan even op de website winkel.vpro.nl, want Tegenlicht bestaat 20 jaar en heeft een prachtig boek samengesteld. Het boek van de toekomst. Boordevol met interviews, links naar de verschillende afleveringen. Echt de moeite waard om naar te kijken, dus go check it out. En tot slot, om hier bij Pakhuis te kunnen doen wat we doen, is het heel erg fijn als jullie een donatie willen doen. Kijk, daar gaan we al bijna. Of om zelfs vriend te worden van Pakhuis. Dat kan voor €15 per jaar. Dus kijk vooral even bij ons op de website om ons te supporten. Dank jullie wel en een hele goede avond.